Hello, in this video I'm going to take you through the process of photolithography. Now the basic principle of lithography is that water and oil repel each other. So with photolithography we create a plate, we expose an image onto a plate, and through that process we create an oil attracting area, which is the blue, and a water attracting area, which is the grey. Okay. Please refer to the positives or introduction to positives video for some more information about positives that we can use for this process. This is an example of a wash that's created on true grain. And just back to this test plate, we've got a half-tone image, a piece of scrim, a drawing onto true grain, just using some oil pastel, and then a piece of paper that we've exposed onto the plate as well. The positives I'm going to use today are these. So, we've got two that have been printed out onto film. This is a half-tone image. This was an enlargement of something, I'm not quite sure. We've got a drawing, some drawn marks onto drafting film. We've got a piece of scrim, and we've got a paper stencil. So the possibilities are endless with what we can expose onto our litho plates. Again, if you have any questions, just speak to Damien or myself and we can guide you with that. Now we're making an image, if it's a 3-colour image or a 3-layer image, you would need 3 positives and would need to expose each layer onto a single plate. So we have 3 plates, and then we'll build those layers up through the printing process. So we're now going to go to the safe light room and expose our images onto a photolithography plate. When you're ready to expose your images onto a plate, if you see Damien or myself, we can sort you out the plate. You do need to pay at the shop before we can give you the plate. And once you've done that, we can get the plate out of the cupboard for you. This is a plate, so this is the emulsion side, and then we've got the reverse, which is the aluminium. Just be careful that sometimes the edges can be sharp. Okay, it's thin metal, so just be aware of that. Okay. The exposure unit we're going to use is the small nat graph. Now this should be switched on, and you should see a slight ultraviolet glow at the base of the machine. If for some reason it's not switched on, you can switch it on from the power point just here. Switch it to on from here. And then we press the starter button, holding it down for about 5 seconds, and it buzzes. After your 5 seconds, just release it. Give it about 4 to 5 minutes, and you should see the ultraviolet glow. Okay? That's the indicator that the exposure unit is ready to use. If you're unsure, just come speak to myself or Damien. So we're going to lift the lid up. The glass should be spotlessly clean. Any information on the glass will expose onto your plate. Okay, they're very sensitive. Now we've got a variety of positives here. And if I was doing this to actually make an image or to do something worthwhile, I would probably need to tape ever so slightly the elements onto the plate. Okay, just use a little bit of sellotape. Now, normally you would just have one positive. I'm obviously just showing this, I'm doing it this way just for an example, okay? But with one positive, you can pretty much hold it in place and then place the plate face down onto the exposure unit. You want to place your positive so it is right way reading onto the plate, okay? So it's the way you wish the image to actually print. If it was text and I wanted to print "Hello John," I would make sure that it reads "Hello John" when placed on the plate, okay? Now for this, just for this video, I'm just going to pop the pieces onto the glass and just place the plate on top. Again, if you're unsure, please do come and ask. Obviously, you could be making your images this way, very experimental approach. You could overlap them just to see what happens. Ideally, you want your image to be fairly central in the plate. You want to have a nice kind of margin, which will just help when we ink up. For larger images, we may need to use a larger plate, okay? This is the smallest size plate we have. So holding the plate corner to corner, I'm going to place it onto the glass, like so. And close the lid and lock it. Now, different positives will require slightly different exposure times. To start with, if you just come and ask Damien and myself, in time you'll kind of build that experience and you'll stop coming to ask. Okay? I'm going for 6 light units, so I can change the number of light units just with this little digi counter here. So I have 0, 0, 6. I'm going to switch the vacuum on. Give it a few seconds for the vacuum to engage, and this is keeping everything flat, nice and flat to our plate. I'm then going to press the little green button. When I do so, the little green light will come on. Now you can't see it on this screen here, but what's happening now is this is counting down. The plate is receiving an exposure of ultraviolet light. Where the light makes contact with the emulsion on the plate, it starts to break the emulsion down. Our positive areas, our image areas of the plate, which are protected from the light, will stay intact, and they will be the surface that the ink adheres to. So, the exposure is complete. We're going to switch the vacuum off. Give it a good few seconds to disengage. We're going to unlock the lid. And just carefully lift the lid. We're going to lift our plates. And we're ready to take this to the plate making table. You can slightly see the images there where we will develop the plate. Okay, so we're now ready to develop the plate. This is the plate making table. So I'm just going to give the surface a rinse water. And then I'm going to squeegee water on the surface. So we don't want any puddles of water on here because it could affect the development of the plate. But the thin film of water will just keep the plate in place for us. There we go. And then we've got the developing pad and the positive developer. Squeeze the developer onto the pad. And then we're going to work the pad over the plate. I'm not applying any pressure. Nice sweeping movement, so we're covering the whole plate really quite quickly. Just keep working this over. This is your Karate Kid moment. Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. Again, I'm not applying any pressure, just working the pad over the plate. So basically, the developer has broken down the non-image area of the plate, dissolved it, and it's just washing away. That becomes the water attracting area of the plate. With our ink area, or our image area, the ink attracting area of the plate. So that's fine. Just going to squeeze the excess out, pop the pad back to the tray, and then we're just going to rinse over the plate. Slightly lift the plate and just rinse underneath. Again, be careful, it's a thin piece of metal. Turn the water off. And we're going to lift the plate. Just let the excess run off, like so. So we're now ready to go through back to the main workshop and gum the plate up. Okay, so we're going to gum the plate up now. I've got a sponge which I've just slightly dampened. Okay, the plate is just on this white surface here. Please note that it's just overhanging the edge of the table ever so slightly. Okay, that will just help lift the plate from the table. And I'm just going to take up the excess water from the developing stage, just like so. Always make sure you kind of wipe towards the area that's overhanging, like so. Okay, if we were to go this way, we'd start to bend the plate. So we're just taking the excess water off. I'm not applying any pressure. And we're going to use the gum Arabic to gum the plate up. So in the middle like so. And we're going to work this just over the image area first, and then the whole of the plate. Again, I'm not applying any pressure. I'm just going to keep working this over the plate until it starts to dry. Now the gum Arabic will desensitize the grey areas of the plate, the water attracting areas of the plate, and once dry, it just kind of forms a protective layer for the plate. It's worth leaving the plate for at least half an hour before you print it, once it's dry, and the longer the better. And we just keep going, and you'll start to feel a little bit of resistance when the gum's drying. And that should be fine. And just allow it to fully dry out. Obviously make sure the underside is dry as well. You could always place it onto a couple of sheets of newsprint or some scrap paper. Once the plate's dry, it's ready to store. Okay, so you can pop it into a drawer. Obviously give the white surface a wipe down, just to make sure that's nice and dry. Rinse the sponge out and pop it back to where you got it from. And then this next stage that we'll be moving on to will be the inking the plate up and printing stage. Okay, so this is our gummed up plate. Okay, the gum's dry. It's actually been left for a few days now. That's not necessary, at least half an hour will be fine. So we're ready to work through the printing process. Our first job is to attach the plate to the bed of the press. We have two offset litho presses. We have the large one here and the smaller one just there. I'll just undo the screws. Slide the plate grippers along. And then we're just going to tighten up the screws. As soon as you feel the screws starting to tighten, stop. Should be fine. Okay, I'm going to take the blanket or the protective blanket off our printing blanket. And we can just pop it down the back, like so. Okay. Pop my gloves on. I've picked up a red ink from the yellow cabinet in the main workshop where the inks are stored, and a palette knife. I'm just going to use red straight from the tin. Got a piece of scrap paper underneath, just so I don't make any more mess than what I need to. Sometimes the lids are difficult to remove from the tins. Pop the tin on its side like so, take the palette knife and just push the lid. And of course, because I'm filming, the lid is really tight. It's coming. There we go. Just work it round and it will come off. Put a band of ink just along the top of the table like so. Gloves off. Now I'm going to use this roller just here, this spindle roller. You need to make sure your roller is ideally wider than your image. And this is fine. That will just prevent roller lines. If for some reason it's impossible, we can work around that. Okay? I'm just going to check that the roller is nice and clean, it looks good. Now I'm going to roll a thin layer, a thin slab of ink out on the surface of the table. So, roll. Now when rolling a slab of ink out, you roll, up, down, lift, twist, and lift, twist, up, down, lift, twist. You'll use the whole of the roller. You can see I've got a band there where there's no ink, that's fine. I'll just take it this way. Roll around like so. We want a nice thin layer. Don't want a really thick layer of ink because we'll force ink onto the grey areas of the plate. It's not what we want to do. fine orange peel texture and velvety texture. Okay, pop that just on the rests like so, just carefully. I've got a container of water. Okay, I'm going to put a dash of gum arabic into the water. So. Now, if you can remember, we've got a coating of gum arabic on the plate. Okay, so we need to clean that off. We use the sponge, the water, and the dash of gum arabic. Squeeze most of the water out. Just going to work it over the plate like so. Okay, I'm not applying any pressure. So this will break down the dried gum arabic on the plate. And what we should start to see is the grey areas of the plate holding a thin kind of layer of water or staying wet. And the bluey green areas of the plate are repelling the water. Okay? Now, we've got that little dash of gum arabic in with the water. That just helps to condition those grey areas. It just makes it that little bit more water attracting. Okay? There we go. So that's fine. So we're ready to start inking our plate up. So sponge in one hand. Take the roller. So we're going to wipe over the plate. Dampen the plate, keeping that grey area wet. If the grey area starts to dry out, the ink will stick to the grey area. Okay. Place the roller onto the plate. Not applying any pressure. Take it up, down, lift, twist. Wipe the plate again. Keep those grey areas. Not got puddles of water on there, just keeping it wet. Up, down, lift, twist. Up, down, lift, twist. Up, down, lift, twist. Damp plate. Apply some ink again. Down, lift, twist. Okay, I tend to do 3 lots of 3. And we're just going to apply ink gradually to the image area of the plate. Okay, I'm going to reload the roller. Squeeze the water from the sponge, just take up any excess water, like so. Just going to take a piece of card, so we just need to dry the plate. Wave the card over the plate like so. It won't take long. The plate will just dry off. Still got a couple of little wet areas on there. That'll be okay because we're just proofing the plate up at the moment. We're going to start building the ink onto the printing blanket gradually. If we start forcing too much ink on, Okay, at this stage it will start to bleed out into the non-image areas of the plate. Grab a piece of newsprint, place it on the bed. We're going to push the pedal down and the paper grips will pop up. I'm going to slide the paper underneath, paper grips, release the pedal, grips go down and they will hold the paper in place. Okay? So we're now ready to wind the roller across the beds of the press. At the moment, the roller is disengaged with the beds of the press. It's higher than the beds. So we're going to wind it across. As it reaches the end, this small wheel will travel up this little ramp. Now the roller is engaged with the beds of the press. So we're going to wind it back. Pick up our layer of ink like so, okay, and then it will offset the ink onto our piece of paper, and it will be a very light impression. Okay, we need to repeat this process 2 or 3 times to build up enough ink onto the blanket to then print onto our paper. Push down on the pedal, pull the sheet of paper away, and you can place this into the drying rack. Okay, so we've proofed the plate up a couple of times now and we're ready to print onto a good quality paper. So it's the same idea, the plate's been inked up, paper's in place, and we're just going to wind, roller, roller, wind it back, and we should see a stronger impression. Okay. That's not too bad. What we can do is wind it back again. And there's our first layer printed. Okay, we could get it even stronger than that. That's okay for me. So we'll place this onto the drying rack. You print onto all your pieces of good quality paper. They'll need to dry overnight, and the following day you could print the second layer if there is a second layer. But they will need to dry overnight. If you're building up quite a number of layers, they may start to take that little bit longer to dry through. Okay. So once we've finished printing, obviously we need to clean up. So we're going to start off with the plate. We'll clean the plate first. Pop a glove on. I'm going to damp the plate. Just keep the grey areas safe. So it's damped. And we're going to take the ready gum, which is part gum, part solvent. We'll give it a shake. You need to wear gloves when you're using this product. And I'm going to pop some in the centre. I normally say about the size of a £2 coin. Slightly larger. And we're going to work this over the image area of the plate. So the solvent will break down the ink. And the gum will also gum the plate up. So commercially, this is great for speed. Because as you're cleaning the plate, you'll gum it up at the same time. Make sure you've got all of the ink from your image area. so that's nice and clean. Still got a little bit of ink on there, so I'm going to just apply a little bit more. I always advise students to just gum the plate up with the gum Arabic again. Okay, it's good practice, just to be super safe. So, just squeeze the water from the sponge. You could rinse your sponge if you wish. Apply some gum Arabic. Take the gloves off now. And we're just going to gum the plate up as we did after we developed the plate. And then just keep working over it. I'm not applying any pressure. Just keep working over the plate until it starts to dry. And we'll let it dry out and it's ready for storing. I'm just going to undo the screws. Pop a bit of gum under there. Okay. Just place the plate onto the worktop to dry out. Or some scrap paper. I'm going to dry the bed of the press. Rag. I've got a little bit of ink on the press, so I'll remove that when I'm cleaning up the roller. That's fine for the moment. Our next job is to clean the ink from the blanket, and we use a solvent for that. So gloves on again. We have two conical flasks, one with solvent in, and the second has got a capital M sticker on it, and that's got methods in. Sometimes the sprinkler system will undo with the lid. Okay, if that happens, just show it to a member of staff, we'll get supplies and we can sort that out. So there should be a little top on there with a sprinkler system. A little bit of solvent onto the rag. And then we're going to wipe over the blanket, like so, to clean the ink from the blanket. Always make sure the roller is stationary. Do not wind and wipe, because the roller is going to want to go down to the end of the press. Make sure the blanket is spotless. We will check. Just allow the solvent to evaporate, and then we can put the cover back on top. And just use the solvent that's on my rag to clean a little bit of ink that's on the bed. So that's sorted. So we now need to clean the ink up from the tabletop and from the roller. As the ink was straight from the tin, I'm going to scrape it up and pop it back into the tin. If it was an ink that I'd mixed specially, we can cut some plastic down, pop the ink into the plastic, fold the plastic, tape it, and that'll be fine for a good few weeks. So I'm going to use the palette knife to scrape the ink up, pop it back into the tin like so. Obviously the more ink we get up here, the less we've got to clean away. Fine. Put the lid back on the ink. Okay, so the vegetable oil is in containers like this. We have 3, and then we have spray containers with water and soda crystals. We're going to start off with some vegetable oil. And we can actually use the rag that we've been using. We have a container with half soiled rags in that you can start the cleaning up process with them and then finish off with a clean rag. Do the palette knife first. So basically the vegetable oil will break down the ink. Carefully start wiping it in like so. Some colours may be a little bit tougher than others to clean, but just keep going with it. Try and use as much of the rag as possible. That's fine for the moment. Okay. I'm just going to get some scrap paper from our scrap paper drawer, and we can use that to start cleaning the roller. So we've just got some scrap paper here that I'm going to roll out the excess ink from the roller onto. Now you could actually use good paper and roll the ink out onto that and then allow that to dry, and you've got some great paper that's coloured for collage, or it could be for backgrounds. Okay, you know, if you've got good quality ink on the roller, it makes sense to kind of use it for something. However, I'm just going to use some scrap paper, and I'm just going to roll onto the paper, and it's just about taking that ink off. We've had many students in the past kind of roll onto good paper though. Different types of paper. Collage. Could be pages from books. Really textured paper. And you do get some incredible qualities. So most of the ink has been removed from the roller. So I'm going to just go on with some vegetable oil. Still use this rag. Start working the vegetable oil over the roller, and you can see it breaking down. Again, we're trying to use as much of that rag as possible. It's really important that we do clean these rollers thoroughly. They're very, very expensive. And if you fail to do so, we will be able to track you down and very kindly ask you to come back down and finish cleaning the roller properly, because we'll know what colour you've used for your print, because it will be on the drying rack. Okay. So we're ready now for the water and soda crystals. I'm going to pop that dirty rag just onto the scrap paper for the moment. Just be careful when you are spraying that it's not going to go onto anyone else's work. And we're going to take my gloves off, use a clean rag to finish up. Palette knife there. So we have a silver bucket full of clean rags. Do the edges. Go over the spray again. This red is very strong. You should be able to see if it's nice and clean. You can always run your finger over the surface just to be sure. It's looking okay to me though. Just put that over here. And then we're ready to do palette knife. So it's spotless, ready for the next student to use. And we'll return this to the palette knife tray. Then it's the worktop. Make sure you get the edges for this table. needs to be spotless, so it's ready for the next person to use. Once you've completed that, you can pop the oil and the spray container back to where you got it from, as well as the palette knife. Replace the ink, any rubbish to the bin, any recycled paper can go into recycling. We've got our container that will empty and just rinse the container and the sponge, and the conical flask will go back to the yellow cabinet as well. And there we go. If you have any questions, feel free to ask myself or Damien. Thank you for watching.